Plastic is everywhere, in our water bottles, our shampoo, our clothes, as well as in our oceans and our food. Humans have made 8.3 billion tons of plastic. It's an addiction that's devastating our planet. Christians around the world are being asked to observe less plastic for Lent, a movement spearheaded by the Anglican Communion Environmental Network. To learn how it's working in Chicago, let's welcome James Van Camp, a Presbyterian who has a long career as an innovator in the sciences. He and his wife, Grayson Van Camp, are representatives to Ecumenism Metro Chicago. We also welcome Michael Tarian, the Archdiocese of Chicago's Ecumenical and Interreligious Liaison to Care for Creation, and a trustee of the Parliament of the World's Religions. James and Michael are both members of the Climate Action Task Force. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Let's talk about plastic. What is it? Where is it going? And what are we going to do with it?
Well, as a scientist, we know that plastic is made up of carbon atoms, and they're all derivatives of petroleum for the most part, and as such, it has a very long life in the ecology, and should be carefully used and should not be wasted the way we currently see it being used. There are alternatives to using plastic for containers and so forth. There's ways of addressing that, and to some extent the Anglican initiative in that area is trying to address that and to bring it down to the level of the parish or the congregation to do something definitive about it, something that we can act on locally.
Can you tell me, what are you asking for all Christians to do?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. In terms of prayers, there's prayers of contrition. To recognize that we are not the center, but God is at the center, and to call ourselves into a deeper union with each other as Christians, but also with God, and to and union with all of creation. So there's that prayer element. The second is almsgiving, is to look out and say, look, everybody, how do I think about everybody in terms of their needs rather than just my own? And so in doing that, we're thinking about those that are most affected, that are most in need, the poor, the disenfranchised, those that suffer the most. And so then it puts ourselves in terms of a true sisterhood and brotherhood or fraternity, a solidarity with one another, and to say, okay, we need to take care of our common home, because that's what sustains all of life. And then the last is fasting. The fasting is a way of conversion, if you will. It's an invitation to say, if I can reduce my carbon footprint, if I can reduce my consumption of plastic, then it's recognizing that I'm living in greater harmony with the earth, with creation, and it's a change in lifestyle. It's a conversion, so then we can look out and say, yes, isn't it all beautiful? We're a part of that. And thank God for that.
James, I know you have a science background. I wanted you to talk about what are we doing to our earth when we use these plastic items every day that you have here. What is the expectation that we can do to lessen the amount of plastic that we use?
Well, one of the things that I thought of as I was studying it, and before Lent came along, I've been looking into this business because I was in the business of water treatment and knew how water is used in so many ways in so many industries, and when I saw the number of cases, boxes and boxes of plastic bottles of water that get distributed for various meetings and congregational meetings and conferences and so forth within our own sphere of influence, I wondered whether or not we couldn't be doing a better job of using materials that were more sustainable, that were more recyclable, that have some value that could actually benefit a congregation or a parish when they choose to use this. Michael will tell you that hey, bring your own refillable container and refill it with water. Okay, and that is probably a more perfect solution, but a possible solution for the situation that exists is to trade in the plastic for something like aluminum that is infinitely recyclable.
Why is this a theological issue?
If you look at the scripture, it's inviting us to look at how do we love God and to love our neighbor. And we can't do that if we don't love our common home, because our common home sustains all of life, and it is all of God's creation. You can't separate that. So that's a really, really important point. So if you are a Christian, then if you love God, you love your neighbor, you're going to love creation. But somehow, in some ways, we have a misinterpretation of what it means to have dominion over the earth. And in terms of a true hermeneutic, it means to care, preserve, and protect creation. It doesn't mean to abuse it. We only have one earth, and it's a beautiful gift. And if you look out at the cosmos, at the stars, currently in the observable universe, there's 1 billion trillion stars. And all of that incredible creation, there's a planet called Earth. And here we are in this Milky Way, and we have this precious, precious jewel. And on Christmas Eve, on the Apollo 8, what did the astronauts read from but on Genesis, when they took that first photo of our home, Earth? And we're all here together. And so if we care about not just our generation, but the unborn, it's about an ethic of life. What about those that come after us? What about 7 generations from now? We talk about respect for life. Well, then we need to care for the home that supports all of life. We're talking about hundreds of millions of people suffering and dying if we continue to pollute and degrade God's creation at the rate we're doing.
Thank you, James and Michael, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm LaShondra Stevens for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.